Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Can all hear me okay at home? Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to maybe just turn side to side or around to greet one of your Sangha members. And if you want to wave to one of your Brady Bunch boxes at home. So welcome to the Insight Meditation community of Charlotte. My name is Denise, and I am one of the Dharma leaders here at IMCC. And tonight's talk is on mindfulness of our relationship to money. And out of transparency, I want to say that much of the research that I did on this was from Dharma talks that were given on Dharma Seed by Dharma leaders Diana Winston and Guy Armstrong. And then there's a book, Mindfulness of Money. So a couple of weeks ago, Ward gave us a talk on generosity. And last week, Claude gave us a talk on letting go. So little did I know when I started writing this a few weeks ago that we almost have a little mini-series. And as we have learned, giving, or dana, as it's known in the Pali language, can come in the form of material goods, time, a smile, your presence, your meditation practice, and even in taking the 5 precepts, which is to refrain from killing and stealing and harsh language or false language, sexual misconduct, and intoxicants. And another form of giving is financial. Each of these forms of giving can lead to a mind state of generosity. So I learned something 2 weeks ago with your talk. Thank you, Ward. And each can foster harmony and give us a feeling of safety for ourselves and for others. And all of these are also an opportunity to let go, not only for another's benefit, but for our own, an unburdening and a sense of freedom, more often than we would think. Sometimes it can feel difficult, at least for me, to let go of hard-earned money. Would anybody agree? Okay. And to me, that feels like my security blanket. So sometimes I'm a little reluctant to want to let that go. I believe it takes a lot of courage and honesty to face what it is really like to manage our money and what it is like to give. I sometimes find the idea of letting go of my resources in the face of uncertain outcome is very scary. I think it is wise, though, to take a look at my true desires, my fears, and my social conditioning before accepting, earning, or however I choose to earn my money, or giving over money. Many have heard the expression, easy come, easy go. But honestly, I think it takes significant effort to gain money and to earn money, and it seems to just evaporate. I can feel a real tug between wanting to hold on to it and wanting what it can buy for me, or others perhaps. Wanting, also known as greed, not to mention the frustration over my lack of control over how companies raise their prices, and I feel at their mercy. Poor me. Mad, also known as aversion. The idea that the ideal amount of money will make my problems go away. That's delusion. When I pay attention as I am spending, I can notice thoughts along the lines of, am I shrewd and stingy? So I don't want to look like that, but sometimes I want to be like that, without saying or letting anybody know. Am I spending frivolously? Or am I being reasonable and smart? I don't know if this ever happens to you, But sometimes I'll either quickly decide to spend on something and purchase it, or I will quickly walk away because I don't want to deal with the strife of the feeling, should I or shouldn't I? That's suffering. Clinging to money is suffering. Greedy spending can leave us feeling like we've wasted money or not used it wisely in a beneficial way. Additionally, as experience has taught me, whatever pleasure I receive from an acquisition, whether it be a new shirt, yummy food, a timeshare, a new book, it just doesn't last. In Buddhism, it isn't that money itself is inherently good or bad, but whether or not we're creating suffering due to our relationship with money. So whether an expenditure of money is to fix a perceived problem, put towards an opportunity for something good, or just is in the name of good fun, we might ask, how am I reacting? How is my body reacting? And how is my mind inclined? Say mind inclined 10 times fast. Listen, in the present moment, is there a muscle or gut tension response in the body to the decision you're going to make around the acquisition or the letting go of money? And then look at any thoughts that might come along with this. And in that moment, what is the feeling tone? That is a tone of either immediate, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So it's not so much our emotions as much as it is that initial, ooh, me likey, me no likey, or I don't know what's going on. Okay. Is my mind state unwholesome or wholesome? Is my thinking rooted in greed, hatred, or delusion? Or is my mind state rooted in generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom? In the Buddhist teaching on right action, which is the fourth factor in the Eightfold Path, he says we want to regard the welfare of all sentient beings in our actions. And this just happens to be one of our actions, how we choose to deal with money. Yet daily, we witness killing, stealing, cheating, sexual acts, intoxication, and lying for the acquisition of money. But all of these exchanges came with the possibility of acting out of kindness, generosity, contentment, honesty, and awareness instead. In the sutta, the Buddha's teaching on conditions of welfare, he lists what provides happiness. 1, effort, a diligence to acquire our needs. Watchfulness, careful property is not seized. 3, good friendship, association with the wise. That would be all of us here practicing, maybe. And balanced livelihood, to know our income and our expense, and behaving neither extravagantly or miserly. I want to give a little footnote or a side note to number 2, which was watchfulness. This is careful that our property is not seized. A number of years ago, Venerable Panadipa was here speaking with Venerable Panawati. He has since passed. He's a very wise man. And when he spoke, he warned of the downsides of consuming and attachment to our possessions, because it leads to suffering. Just trying to prevent the loss of these things that we have, the theft of these things, the degradation of our objects. Certainly it is wise, though, to try to properly protect for the essentials, food, clothing, shelter, water, and for our loved ones. The Buddha also mentioned 4 causes for the destruction of wealth, unwholesome monetary actions. The first being debauchery. I kind of knew what it was, but I had to look it up. So in case anyone else would like a definition, it is excessive indulgence in sensual pleasures. Number 2 for causes of destruction of wealth is drunkenness. 3, gambling. 4, friendship with evildoers. It is desirable and reasonable to have enough income to be stable. Many have the desire for wealth, yet wealth can lead to confusion and unhappiness. I suspect all of us have heard stories of someone who's very wealthy, yet they don't feel satisfied or maybe even suffer from depression. I think I would fear coming into a large amount of money, though I know I can certainly handle a little more. Getting an inheritance, a lucrative deal, winning the lottery perhaps, would come with a lot of pressure, overwhelming desires. Wanting can also feel icky in the body and in the mind, expectations and responsibilities. Some people have an aversion to money. Some of them, it's because of a self-righteousness, notions about greed and attachment. Others have it more as a spiritual practice, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. And poverty does not necessarily equal virtue. And wealth doesn't mean that someone is greedy. There are quite virtuous, wealthy folks out there that are doing a tremendous amount of good for our society. And we must remember that money unto itself is not inherently evil. Now let's talk about how it can be with our spiritual practice. Well, we were already talking about what is our relationship. That's part of our spiritual practice. Where are we at? But there are some who choose to have minimal amounts of dealings with money as a spiritual practice. I'm going to look in the Buddhist community when we talk about our monastics, though there are other groups that also would do this. They are allowed to have some possessions, and some are able to deal with things like gift cards, but they cannot handle cash. I'm getting this correct, right? I look to my leaders here, okay? So what they do is they give to the community in the teachings, in the Dharma. And the community then provides alms for the monastics. It's in the form of material goods or foods to meet their basic needs so they can continue to go out and to teach and to practice, to bring it to harmony to the community and well-being to the community. And then the community can delight in their distribution of alms. These are the householders, those would be folks like us. And the monastics can avoid what the Buddha said or described as dreadful, vile temptations, noting money can be an obstruction to liberation. Maybe we can all just take a look at some point this week and see if we notice at some point that if we kind of let go of either the idea of money or some money, do we feel any sense of liberation? See if this is true. Ehipasaka. So Diana Winston said, be warned against extravagance, particularly here in the West. Buddhism is being merged with consumerism. How fancy cushions are being advertised in our Dharma magazine. And how big is your bell? Regarding Buddhism in the United States, she wrote the term, the upper middle way, which is kind of funny. We can each decide for ourselves how much is enough. If we just sit for a split second with the idea of enough, how does that make us feel? Anyone feel any relief with that? Just for a minute. How does your relationship to money affect your investing, whether it be investing in your community, yourself, or in the stock market? I was very concerned about the change of leadership in our country, that the economy would go into real turmoil and would dump. But my friend Anna, who works for Vanguard, I was talking to her about this and saying, oh, what am I going to do? I got to retire. So she really said that, the market does bounce back after a few years. We go through business cycles. Things do turn around in history. So we hope that's true. And it really is my relationship to risk, my relationship to money. I went more conservative, and I was very happy I did. Anyways, that's a side note. And then how does our mind, our body, and our heart feel around money and money matters? Diana Winston mentioned a Thai philosopher, but I didn't catch the name. And this person defined the characteristics of moderation. What is that point where it's just right? And this Thai philosopher said, knowing the optimum level point where well-being coincides with the experience of satisfaction. Knowing the optimum level point where well-being coincides with the experience of satisfaction. Consumption that is attuned to our well-being rather than satisfaction of sensual desires would be better for us. Because as we know, sensual desires are fleeting and they're not satisfactory in the long term. And that this would be better than the mindset that maximum consumption is equal to maximum satisfaction. So how much money does it make for us to feel happy? Well, that's for each one of us to figure out for ourselves according to how our relationship is with money. But they say in studies, on average of $75,000 to $100,000 basically helps most people feel content and happy, where they have the basics, the food, the shelter, the medical insurance, some stability. How much does it take to feel safe? Well, there's all kinds of different models out there. You can search the internet and see if one of those in particular is a good resource for you to help minimize risk. But remember, life is always uncertain and we only have some ability to control, and that's with our actions only. So we can ask ourselves, do we seek safety? And if we do, what is the cost of seeking that safety? And does it interfere with harmony, happiness, and connection? Are we living in a mind state of abundance or materialism? What am I lacking? What is that hungry ghost I'm trying to feed? What amounts to abundance is defined by our views, which are our personal opinions based on limited experiences. And abundance is tied to our beliefs, which are our convictions about the truth of something based on our values and our morals. So it does behoove us to know what our true values are. Social conditioning is intertwined with my fears, my desire for becoming a certain persona, and that affects how I relate to money and abundance. Abundance has been defined as when you have what you need for yourself and you have enough to give someone else. And in that moment, there's an ease in letting go and a freedom. Sharing can also be one of our needs. Societal harmony is valuable, but also it sows a seed for connection, and that is also one of our most basic human needs. Some people in our society feel shame if they don't have money, but there's also a shame if you have money and you hide it. What's your personal story around money? How did your parents and grandparents relate to money, and how has that affected you and your relationship to money? Have you had hardships that color your relationship to money? Has someone dear to you modeled generosity, and that has shaped how you relate to giving? In the book, Mindfulness and Money, it said, what would it be like if we didn't have to be afraid of change? That might change our love-hate relationship with money. Have we ever taken a look to see if we mourn what it has taken to get that money? What do we lose in order to gain money? One of the top 5 things that people mention on their deathbed that they wish they had done differently was not to work so hard. Albert Einstein says, a calm and modest life brings more happiness than the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness. I do want to mention briefly, sometimes folks will ask us for money, and sometimes it can be a little hard to decide whether or not to give money, particularly if it's a relative this is not coming back, okay? But if we can let go of the attachment to our expectations, we're going to feel a lot better. And just assume it's not coming back and let it be free. And then also don't think that once we let this go, that we should have any determination of how that money is spent. Otherwise, we're going to suffer. Spend thoughtfully, find a middle way. The Buddha said, contentment is the greatest wealth. I want to read just a couple of quick poems here. This is from the Anguttara Nikaya called The Benefit of Wealth. My wealth has been enjoyed, my dependents supported, protected from calamities by me. I have given supreme offerings and provided the 5 oblations. I've provided for the virtuous, the restrained, followers of the holy life. For whatever aim a wise householder would desire wealth, that aim I have attained. I have done what will not lead to future distress. When this is recollected by a mortal, a person established in the Dharma of the noble ones, he is praised in this life, and after death he rejoices in heaven. This is a poem called Health and Wealth by Anonymous. We squander health in search of wealth. We scheme and toil and save, then squander wealth in search of health, but only find a grave. We live and boast of what we own, but when we die, we get a stone. This is from AI, who's also a poet. Mindful cash flow. The greenback stance, a fleeting sight, a river flowing day and night, not a sum, but life's supply, a tool for dreams that touch the sky. No frantic chase, no grasping greed, but careful choices planting seed. To spend with purpose, give with grace, to hold no envy in this space. The mindful eye, it sees the cost, the things we crave that might be lost. A sense of balance, calm and clear, to live with purpose year by year. So let the currency flow free, a source of comfort for you and for me. The mindful spending, we find our worth, a treasure found on this sweet earth. Easy come, easy go rolls off our tongue, but it is laced with delusion. When it comes to our relationship with money, may it come with ease, may it go with ease.